After everyone is finally merged, finally playing this game together, here comes Survivor to just rip everyone apart and complicate the game even further. I don't know about y'all, but this whole two tribal thing really seemed to slow the momentum down in the game to me. But you know what? We still got to learn a little bit more about these players and where the game might go after this. Now, before we dive into all of that, of course, I'm going to ask if you could please hit that subscribe button below if you have not already, just so you can stay tuned as we finish off this season. Now, let's get started. So this episode kicks off with Mitch talking about how sad he is that Charity's gone now and how lost he's feeling in the game and all that good stuff. Really, a lot of this beginning part of the episode seems to focus on Mitch, who at least is trying his best to rebuild his social game, especially with people like Joe and Shauhin. Now, even though Mitch is doing his due diligence here, I'm still a little bit worried for his game because throughout this entire episode, we're just going to hear different people talk about what an endgame threat he is. Like, they're not too scared of him right now, but they are worried that if he makes it to the end that he's going to have one hell of a story to tell. So that is something that's causing him a little bit of trouble. Meanwhile, Say's game is still struggling too, of course, because my girl has just been catching votes all season long. Now, we do hear her admit that she voted out Cedric last episode just to get her lick back, which was just so petty and extra and unnecessary, and I loved every bit of it. Especially the part with her changing her handwriting too, just so nobody would know. I mean, how petty is that? I've said this before that I lovingly consider her to be a villain in this game, but she is the exact type of villain that I personally love to see and root for. On a more serious note though, I did really appreciate the scene between Say and Shauhin too. It was just nice to see Shauhin seemingly get to know Say more and recognize the type of player she is, which is really more of a straight shooter up front type of person, which that probably throws a lot of people off because that's just usually not how this game is played at all. Like, I definitely feel like the more sneaky and backstabbing stuff is definitely more normal here. Now, I do also want to point out the confessional here of Shauhin talking about how in the middle he is right now and how he's in such a great spot in the game. Because it is kind of true. I mean, everybody is going up to him and Joe wanting to work with them. He even gets this winner-esque quote where he talks about how he could win the game if he is able to maintain the same control. To me, this was the first episode where Shauhin really started to pop out on his own. I feel like in the past, it's mainly been about Joe or Thomas or David a little bit more than him. So that's definitely something I'm going to look a little bit closer at moving forward. But I also feel like at the exact same time, him working with people like Joe and Eva and David just seems kind of obvious to me, you know, them having this whole bro alliance thing. And as we'll see later on in the episode, other people are starting to take notice of Shauhin too. So as everyone now heads off to the next challenge, this is where we're gonna find out that this is in fact gonna be a double elimination episode with two separate tribes, which they have done this so many times before in this new era, and I always just hate the timing on stuff like this because it's like, hello, they literally just merged. Like, I wish they would just let these players play the game and have it be that, you know? Like, all of this complicated stuff, starting off with 3 tribes and then having a tribe swap and now separating people again after bringing them together, like, it's just too much. It complicates the game for us, the audience, and it allows less room on the actual show to actually show people's personalities and connections and all the little intricate social work that people are doing. I wouldn't be surprised if nothing really new changed for season 49, but I'm hoping maybe we'll get some changes to this for 50. Anyways, after everybody is all split up, here is how the teams end up shaking out. On the first team, we have Star, Eva, Mitch, Chrissy, Joe, and Say. And on the other team, we have Cedric, Shauhin, Kamilla, Mary, Kyle, and David. The challenge itself ends up being that classic grip strength challenge that we've seen on this show countless times before, but even though it was an oldie, they tried to make it interesting, at least with the editing and Shauhin singing and all that fun stuff. But in the end, it all comes down to Joe and David, who are both able to win immunity for themselves this week. But ultimately, David is really the one who comes out on top at the end and wins the big reward and all that stuff. It seems like finally, for the first time all season, we're not getting any weird milk or money related content from David, like at all. He actually got a pretty normal edit this time. So there's nothing really too crazy to note about him, but I do gotta point out just how casual he was looking at this challenge. I mean, he was holding on to that pole with just one arm, casually checking his nails the whole time. Overall, he just made this whole challenge look like light work, and you know people are gonna be looking at him as a much bigger challenge threat after this if they weren't already. Anyways, back at the losing team's camp, it's pretty clear that the only real options for the block right now are Mitch or Sai. And it looks like they're both wanted for pretty different reasons. It seems like people want Sai out because she's viewed as just more of a wild card in the game in general. Whereas with Mitch, like I was saying earlier, people just view him as more of an endgame threat. As for me, I mean, they're both cool, but y'all know I love me a personality hire, so I would love for my girl Sai to stay in the game. But Mitch does have that block a vote up his sleeve, which honestly I had totally forgot about at first, and that is going to get him a lot more power. We see Mitch confiding in Joe about this block a vote thing, trying to gain some trust with him there. And that to me was just kind of a risk because it could have easily backfired. I mean, we saw the exact same thing happen earlier in this season with Bianca, but this time at least it seems to work out pretty well for Mitch in the short term at least. Now, Sai was doing some work out there to up her social game too. We saw her out there trying to reach out to people like Star and Shaheen and Joe. Really, it looked like she was trying to get in with everybody, but it just felt like it may have been way too late at that point. Like she had just been a target for most people for so long that she was kind of considered to be the easy vote. But it's also like, is she the biggest threat on that side right now? I think not. Now, this tribal council itself was pretty standard. Really, the only thing that I have to note is Chrissy, when she started to pop out a little bit, talking about how the big players with the big stories are just the bigger threats in this game overall. Now, she did eat here, and she definitely wasn't wrong, but I'm pretty sure she also calls out like Joe and Mitch by name, which was definitely scary. I just would not be surprised at all if all of these quote unquote bigger players took that the wrong way. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they started looking Chrissy's way next either. Eventually, we do get to the votes where we see that Mitch did use his block a vote and Sai is indeed voted out here. She was hanging on for a while, but sadly her time finally came to an end. I mean, I could always tell that she wasn't going to win just based on pretty much everything about her edit, but she was so fun and funny out there, and it was such a blast watching her. And like I was saying earlier, she is the exact type of villain that I like to root for. I do hope they go back to explain just how exactly the votes ended up being unanimous too. Like, did people just get scared or what? Because it was looking like people like Chrissy and Star were more on Sai's side at first, but at the same time, I could see that news of the block a vote getting around to everybody and that just kind of settling it too. So with one tribal out the way, let's now move on to the other camp where it really looks like Cedric is the main one in trouble. It just doesn't really look like he has really any allies on that side except for maybe Mary, but even then, not really. So it looks like things are overall pretty cut and dry here, except for Kyle, who has a few other plans in mind. See, Kyle is still salty about Shaheen going through all his bags and he doesn't really trust him for real, which, let's be honest, he probably shouldn't. Plus, Shaheen is just a way better and more connected player than Cedric is anyway, sorry. So now we have Kyle and Kamilla running around trying to see if they can get the votes to get Shaheen out now, which does kind of make sense, but at the same time, I am also surprised that all this is happening so early. Like, I thought that little bond thing that they had made during that tribe swap would last a little bit longer, but you know what? I feel like it probably would have if it wasn't for this whole two tribal split thing in the first place. Either way, it's sort of framed like David is the deciding vote in the middle here, like Kyle and Kamilla don't really feel comfortable moving on without him. Meanwhile, Mary is just pretty much ignored completely in this episode, which I thought was odd. Like, I was surprised she wasn't even an option for the vote or anything. So to be honest, going into this tribal, I was kind of thinking that Cedric could stay with people like Kyle, Kamilla, and Mary all on his side. But in the end, of course, we see that he is unanimously voted out. Now, I'm not sure what happened to make Kyle and Kamilla change their minds. Honestly, I'm not even sure how solid this plan was in the first place, or if this was just more of a red herring thing that the show tried to throw at us. I mean, Kyle and Kamilla did kind of sort of lie to David, so there may be some retaliation from that in the future. But either way, I just hope it's explained in the next episode, because it looked like Cedric was out there just vibing, chilling, and not really bothering or threatening nobody. Meanwhile, all these bros are out there forming this big mega alliance that nobody is really clocking or coming for right now. Like, it's crazy. So now that all this is said and done, I could definitely see how that whole mega bro alliance has a path forward to run this game. I don't think it's going to be seamless though. I can definitely see somebody else trying to puncture it like Kyle did. Or it could always just implode from the inside too, but we'll just have to see. But of course, I want to know, what did you all think of this episode? Do you agree with who went home, or would you rather have been someone else instead? Let me know in the comments below. Right now, I definitely feel like it was a mistake to send out two of the least connected people on that whole island, at least if you're not in that big mega alliance. But hey, we're just gonna see how that shakes out for them. For this to be like a special double elimination episode, honestly, I did think it was a little bit dull. Definitely one of the weaker ones of the season so far. And like I said earlier, I feel like splitting everybody up right after bringing them all together just kind of slowed down the momentum a bit. Overall, I do still feel really good about Joe, Kamilla, and now I'm going to add Shaheen to this list. But I am a little bit nervous for Kyle now after this past move, because if word about him trying to blow up this alliance gets out, then it can definitely get ugly for him. And I also sadly feel like Chrissy could really just go at any moment now. But I felt that way for a while, so there's that. Of course, I'll be back here next week to recap the next episode with you all. But until then, bye.